and they just have some nice stories. And so let me share this with you. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, this website is literally called nicenews.com, and it's their daily edition. And so you can just sort of look here at some just nice stories. And so I don't know, I have no idea how I came across this, but I get their little digest in my mailbox every day, and it's just nice to get positive stories instead of, negative news stories all the time. And so you can see just these are the kind of stories they have. This one about Mark Cuban is in their health and wellness, and this one about this 19-year-old woman flying solo around the world. So it's kind of just, just nice little fun stories. So anyway, you can go to nicenews.com, and if you want to get it in your inbox every day, you can sign up and get those. So that was the first fun little thing I came. So to balance the nice stuff out, I'll tackle the nasty stuff. So there's all balance in the world, yin and yang, So you all are familiar with phishing, right? phishing, correct?
I've heard of it.
Yep.
Well, you get emails trying to scam you somehow. They're called phishing. They want you to click on them. So there now is something called smishing. Anybody ever heard of smishing?
No.
Okay. Well,
Fishing.
you may not have heard of it, but I can guarantee you're seeing it. Basically, these are text messages you're getting, and it's similar to phishing with emails, but they are now trying to get you to do something to reply with some kind of personal information. And so this is an attempt, basically, it's the same thing as the scam emails, but now you've got to be aware of scam text messages. So, just like you do with emails, or at least I do, if something seems kind of fishy or odd, I just delete it. Like anytime I get an email where somebody says, hey, your account needs attention, or, there's been a hack of your account or something like that, I never click on anything on an email. If I want to double check something, I'll just go around that and go to my account and double check things that way. Well, same thing with text messages now. So if you get a text message and you don't recognize, who it's from, or it seems shady, I would treat it that way. I'm going to guess that if it's somebody that you actually do know and you just don't recognize it, they will probably try to contact you again. So anyway, be aware, because a lot of the stuff that's been going on email for years is now happening over text message. Aren't you happy that there's another way for people to try to scam you now?
Yeah, thrilled.
It just gets better and better. All right. Well, for something a little more fun, anybody
Fishing
here
is fun. My God.
Well, I don't know, maybe if you're making money off of it, but anybody here nostalgic for the old days of Mac OS? Anyone? Nobody? Okay, well, you now can go, there are a couple emulators that have been created that you can use in your browser that are fully functional emulators using Mac OS 7 and Mac OS 8. And so these are kind of fun to play around with. So I'll share with you here. I thought, hold on one second here. Let's get rid of that page. Okay, let's try this again. Hold on. I'm going to share with you guys this emulator that is Mac OS 7.
That's my first computer. That's how it looked.
Bring back memories, anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chicago font.
So here's the thing. This is, I'm on a web page. It's literally system7.app. And this is not just this fun little thing to look at, but it is actually functional. you know, you can actually do things on here. Like I can go over here and I can open this window here, and I can move the window around. And I can do, let's see here, what do we have to play with in here? I can open up the video player. Oh, wait, cannot find the hardware. Well, maybe this one doesn't want to open. Okay. Let's go to, I thought this was the one that had, let's go to games. Let's see what, they have all kinds of little games. I haven't actually tried all these, but supposedly you can actually play these games. And so they've got all kinds of little games in here. And let's see, it's hard for me to move the cursor onto these.
Is this running on a web page?
Yeah, it's running through a web page. So I'm opening Microsoft Word here. And there you go. And, you know, I can type away here in Microsoft Word. So you can actually use this as Mac OS 7. Let's see here. I'll switch. No, I don't want to save this. And by the way, supposedly, I haven't tried this, but supposedly stuff you save will actually save on here for you. I don't know how it knows it's you. I don't know that part. Let's switch here, and I will show you the Mac OS 8 one. Let that load here, and I'll share that with you. Now, don't we look so much more modern now?
Yeah, right.
And so there is OS 8 now. You know, I can have my library here. Let's see what else we have to play with in here.
HyperCard?
Yeah, there is HyperCard somewhere. I was going to open Photoshop here.
Is there a version of HyperCard for Mac OS 11?
Not that I know of.
I don't
No,
think
I
so.
don't think so.
So this is actually Photoshop that I'm, you know, playing with here. So it looks ancient compared to what I use now, but this is actually a fully functional version of Photoshop in OS 8. Let's see. I thought there was a HyperCard in one of these. I just have to find it. Anybody ever use Mac Paint?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Let's see, where would I find HyperCard? It was in one of these. Let me see if I can find it for you.
Nope.
There's ClarisWorks. I remember using that. I don't know where they would have it, but you know, it's funny. Do any of you remember using some of these? Like I remember all these little icons. I don't know if you guys remember that. So anyway, you know, I'll let you guys play on your own with these, but it's Mac OS 7.app or Mac OS 8.app. And these are just emulators right through your browser. And like I said, they're fully functional. They're the real deal. So have fun with them. So
Cool.
anyway, like I said, I didn't know, I only had a few there for you tonight, just because I didn't know how much time I'd have, or even if I would be able to make the meeting before the meeting ended tonight. So I thought the Mac OS ones were a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly brings back memories.
Yeah. Some
My
of us
fir-
still
my
have
first
old
com-
computers.
I'm sorry, what?
Said some of us still have old computers that still run that stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
I still have my LC. Down the basement in a box, but I can't imagine it would still run.
All right, Mac
Well,
SE. Yes, Mac SE. Dual floppy.
Charlie, my old Mac SE is now turned into an aquarium. I think I've mentioned that before. I'll have to dig out a picture of that for the next meeting. I'll share with you guys.
Yeah.
I took all the guts out and turned it into an aquarium.
I think I scavenged a Mac SE30 from the campus too, when they were throwing it away. It's hot stuff, man. I mean, my Mac SE, I bought an expansion card, an accelerator card for it. And it worked great. It had a lifetime warranty on it. Only problem was the company went bust about 8 weeks after I bought it.
Bad timing.
Charlie,
Well,
does it still turn on?
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm sure it does. I mean, I have to dig it out though. It's up in my computer mess. I can't call it a computer room. It's a
You
computer.
know what OS it has on it?
It's probably, well, let's see. It's probably 6 dot something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was early. I paid $500 for a 10 meg hard drive to, hook on, to basically hook into the SCSI drive. And
Oh God, SCSI drives. Remember those?
oh yeah, well, SCSI drives, and I've got my Apple Talk network stuff and a image writer too with an Apple Talk card in it. So that's hot stuff. I mean, whew.
Charlie, my SE was an SE30 Super Drive, and it was really maxed out with 4 megs of RAM.
Whew.
Yeah, I had one of those too. And I had
And
two
back-
screens, and I had 2 screens with it.
2 screens. Ooh.
Oh yeah, you
And
could
back
move-
in and back in the day, who would have thought I would have ever needed more than 4 megs of RAM?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. You
Now,
know,
for anybody who wanted to make one of those work now, the biggest challenge as I see it is finding a compatible video display. Because you'd have to have a working Mac monitor from that same time frame, or maybe if you're lucky, some of them supported VGA out, and you might be able to scrounge a VGA monitor somewhere that's still working.
I've got some of those converters that you used from the VGA to whatever the Apple side was. And I've also got,
The dip switches, right?
no, I think that one didn't have it. I mean, I actually have 2 of the original monitors, the Mac monitors. So,
I think my second monitor was a Mac also. It had
You're
that
making me
wonder-
want to go down my basement and dig out my old LC. And I think I still have the monitor there too. And to see if that damn thing would actually turn on.
oh, yeah.
When I got that,
Sometimes
it came with OS 6, but I had a coupon to buy OS 7. Because back in those days, remember they charged for every update to the
Yeah.
OS. And I think I was able to go up to 9. And of course, that was it, but
Yeah. Steve Jobs really didn't like OS 9. He wanted to break out. Go to Unix. That's what he did.
it was kind of a shame at first. Remember that you could run OS 9 when OS 10 came out? There was some
Yeah.
emulator on it.
Yep.
And then I don't know what level was
Yeah.
OS
they cut it off.
10.3 or something. They dumped that. So then all the OS 9 software, boop, gone.
Oh, yeah. Or you remember when the companies were able to make, clones of the Mac,
Yeah.
and that was under Scully. So you could buy another piece of hardware that ran the Mac operating system, but it wasn't built by Apple.
Yeah. Fake Mac.
Power computing.
My first computer wasn't a Mac. It was a Commodore 64 with a tape drive
Hey,
and a dongle to let you do 80-column text.
Oh my God, Donna.
I
Yeah, you
started with the Southwest Technical Product 6800. I had that thing for 7 years. I hated like sin because I couldn't get software for it. My father kept telling me, you're going to write software for it if you want software.
Yeah, really.
don't forget the TRS-80.
I got a
Oh,
TRS-80 color computer which succeeded the Mac, not the Mac, the Southwest.
Yeah.
I had that
My
for 3
fir-
years and I bought a PC.
my first computer was an Atari.
Ooh, yeah. That was
That's where I
hot
learned
stuff.
basic computing on when I was in junior high.
Yeah. That was in the good old
Um,
days.
I don't know if
By
you
the
can
way,
call it a
John-
computer, but my first electronic device was Pong. You remember that?
Yeah,
I kind of remember that.
Hooked up at your TV
Oh,
and
it was
then
kind of- my
chase this
father
little
wouldn't
ball
buy it.
back and forth across the screen.
Yeah,
And we spent like rainy days, almost all day doing that damn thing.
I was
Um,
lucky because I volunteer in Parkway. And so my first Macintosh was in 1984 because Lloyd had a group of us working a little ahead of the game and way ahead of what Parkway was doing. And so it was actually the first Mac that came out that we worked on for a year or two, and then we kept moving up.
you know, John, you mentioned power computing, and right about that time when they were, you know, had the clones, that's when I worked for a couple different schools teaching and working on computers. And I worked on more of those power computing computers
Yeah.
during that time. And I ran more Cat5 networking cable in schools than I ever care to remember. I never want to see a twisted pair in my life again.
I'll blame you.
Now, those who were paying close attention, those programs that Glenn was showing, notice that they were called System 7. I think it was 7.5.3 is the one they were showing, and then it was
Yeah.
Mac OS 8, because Mac OS 8 is what powered the clones. When I don't think it was Scully, I think it might have been Michael Spindler. I'm not sure who was CEO at Apple at the time they decided to go for the clones. Apple said, if you want to run the Apple operating system in a non-Apple computer, you can't call it system whatever. You had to call it Mac OS, because somebody booting up that computer had to be able to tell that they were running Macintosh operating system, not Power Computing operating system or UMax operating system or whatever brand of hardware it was, but it was the Apple operating system. So they had to see a screen that said Mac OS. That was Apple's terms for cloning. Before that, you couldn't run Apple Mac OS on anything but a Mac, so it didn't matter. You could call it System 6 or System 7 or whatever it was. But as soon as a clone decision was made, Apple said you have to be able to see something on a splash screen that says, that's got Apple's logo and it says Mac OS. And Mac OS 8 was the first version that became compatible with the clones. 9, I believe also, I don't recall whether when 9 came out, the cloning era had come to an end or not. I don't recall. I'm a little fuzzy on the time because Steve Jobs came back to Apple at about that same time and he nixed the clone operation right away.
Yeah.
But that was the difference. You could call it System 7 or System 6 or whatever it was. But if you ran on a clone, or for that matter on a Mac, you had to have it, that splash screen that said Mac OS.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, you see why John is the one who writes our trivia for the holidays.
Yeah. I remember back.
Well, I
to the-
say this because I had one of those things. I had one made by UMax.
Oh, did you?
And, you know, the rationale was, okay, we're going to make, everybody claimed that the Mac OS, Mac operating system was wonderful. It was much better than Windows and so on and so on. But so few people bought it because the hardware was too expensive. So
Yeah.
the thinking was, if you make the hardware less expensive and just sell people, that's basically the clone makers a license to Mac OS, more and more people will buy those machines, more and more people will buy Mac OS, there would be a better developers support for it, and so on and so on. So it would help Apple's business. It turns out it didn't, because the amount of money that Apple made per license was like something like $40, as opposed to spending, you know, even back then, several thousand on a complete Macintosh. So when the numbers started rolling in, it started, you know, they realized they ain't getting a whole lot of revenue from each one of these licenses. In the meantime, Power Computing and UMax and whatnot are buying this cheap generic PC hardware and putting the box together for next to nothing and still charging a premium for it. So Apple wasn't making all that much money on the clone deal, which is why Jobs nixed it when he came back.
So I remember when we were pioneers in Parkway in using Macs because they were using Apple PCs or Apple 2s. And so we broke in with the Macs. We also tried to convince the administration that the 2 different platforms could work with each other. I remember that. And I remember convincing them about email. We worked hard to get email in the district for the teachers. And at that point, I was teaching teachers how to use things like Apple Works and trying to teach a database to somebody who didn't get the concept of hierarchical filing. But I remember having one particular teacher who taught French who was a star at catching on very quickly to these new computers. I think I see his picture here somewhere, Ron.
Oh,
Way back when, you were one of the first to start to learn to use the Apple stuff.
yeah, I mainly I learned computing because of it made doing grades so much easier.
And I learned it because of word processing, which I still think is magic.
And you think as guys, as a teacher before the computer era, I had to sit there with a calculator and do columns and columns of grades and then add it up, and usually had to add it twice because sometimes the 2 numbers wouldn't come out even, but they should. So then I knew I made a mistake when I'm adding all these numbers in, and you had to do that. It would take me like an entire Sunday to do grades when they were coming due.
Ron, my wife still likes to use a grade book.
Well, I had
No,
we had a grade book, but you had to, she doesn't add it up by hand, does she? Does
She's a
she?
math teacher.
Oh, but still, oh my God.
So Ron, did you guys run VisiCalc on Apple IIs to start doing that calculations for you?
I don't know. We were using something called Grade Machine on the Apple IIes.
yeah,
Okay, well, that would have done the same thing.
Yeah, it would basically, you had to put in the data and then it would just pop out the final numbers for you. But at least you knew it was accurate. The problem with doing it by a calculator, you add in, 14 different numbers and then you don't know if you missed one or typed it in wrong or who knows,
The original Apple Works would have worked very good for that too.
Oh, yes.
Steve reminds me of back when we moved to moved here from Rochester for Jim to do graduate work at WashU. And it was all cards back in those days. And I remember seeing with him when we still lived back east, going to General Electric Research Lab and meeting an analog computer. I mean, big rooms full of stuff. We weren't yet in the digital world. But I remember Jim, when he was working on his doctorate, was doing cards. As you said, Steve, the old card game.
I
You
had
talking
a
about punch cards, Donna?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, you're older than me because I don't remember that.
Yeah, I just turned 84. Same
Yeah,
year
what-
that came
I
out.
had an old boss that he was big into mainframes, and I said, whenever you
Here's my
decide to
kitty.
kick it. Oh, here's Kitty. Whenever he decided to kick the bucket, they're gonna lay him in the coffin 9-edge face down.
Yeah.
You mentioned mainframes, and it's like I still remember in college going down to the computer center to get my printout that I sent there from some station someplace.
Yep.
Which
Oh, yeah.
Just
school
seems so
was that,
odd.
Glenn?
What's that?
Which school was that, Glenn?
I was at UMSL at that time.
Oh, okay. I was
That
at
would've-
UMC, basically went over to Middle Bush Hall or possibly over to the engineering school's computer lab.
Yep, the good old days.
Yeah.
Oh, there was nothing
Thank
good
God
about
I'm no
those
longer at
days.
that kind of stage anymore.
God. Oh, yeah. Yeah, remember the
You know-
VSAM files and ISAM files?
You
And
know, what's that, Charlie? I
hey, that's mainframe stuff, yeah, and
Oh.
plus well, we
never had
could
to
talk,
deal with that.
how about IBM PS2s?
Oh, yes.
And let's see, what
Running
was
OS
it?
2.
and token ring architecture and microchannel architecture. Good stuff. That was it. We had OS2 down at Ralston Purina. They were big on that.
You know, the funny thing is, I think that people sometimes forget or maybe just don't think about it, that it really, you know, the stuff we're talking about isn't really that long ago. You know, like I was having this conversation with my students who, you know, my students are mostly juniors in high school.
Yeah.
And, you know, they can't, you know, to them, everything is that they've ever known is just the way it is today. And I'm like, you know, if you go back a decade ago, not more than, you know, a little more than a decade ago, we weren't using smartphones. There was no such thing as social media. You know, it's sometimes we sort of just get used to the way it is and we don't realize that, you know, it wasn't that long ago when we're talking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I mean,
Doesn't it
it's
make you
just-
wonder if you go 30 years in the future, what in the world will it be like then? Who knows?
We'll have
Ron, we don't have to
3D.
go. We don't have to go 30 years. I mean, in 5
Well,
years,
I won't be around, but some of
you
you
know.
will.
Oh, yeah. 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 As I've told people that wanted to get into IT, I said, I hope you like change because it's changing all the time. And
Mhm.
I said, and it's accelerating. It really is. We'll wait for the next generation of chips to come out when they got down to 3, is it 3 microns or something like that? I mean, they've got those TSMC chips are, wow. I mean, it's just amazing how much they can jam. Was it like 28 billion transistors on one of these chips?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, we started with, you know, I mean, gosh, I remember the old, you know, 360s when my first job, the 360 was boxed up in the basement of City Hall, and the 370, we were hot stuff. But I mean, we'd load in all the payroll cards, of course, and you'd have a tray of cards that big and run it through, and you might, you know, punch out another big tray of cards. I mean, it was just hysterical to try and get things done.
Yep.
But we got it done. One of my favorite stories is when the computer operator at City Hall hung his coat on the emergency pull switch.
Ouch.
And during the middle of the payroll run,
Oh, God.
because they had the city payroll, the police department payroll, the fire department payroll, and the state payroll. And it was in the middle of the payroll run, and he went to move his coat, and the pull switch popped out, and it just did boom. That's it. And they had to call IBM, come in and reset it. And of course, you had to restart everything. It was a mess. It was a mess. And when I worked at Barnes, we had one of the guys came in on Sunday with his little girl, probably about the same age as my little granddaughter that was here. And he's working at the main console, and his daughter's walking down. There's a whole line of hard drives sitting there spinning, and she's pressing the little off button on each
Oh,
one.
no.
And she's walking.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, there were stories. There were stories.
And
Yeah.
now, Charlie, kids that age are so adept. I mean, my son, since the time he's been 2, has been a master iPad operator.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good
I
for
mean,
him.
she just goes bip, 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 bip.
Yep.
And they haven't known anything else. They really haven't. And they're just, it'll be, it's fun to see it kind of continue on. But we still like to remember what it took for us to get here. I mean, I did this stuff for 40 years, and I'm just, I'm glad I was part of it. It was fun, but it was a lot of work, though. There were times when the first time we had a big virus hit the server farm at WashU, we had a couple of our directors that didn't believe in putting antivirus on the servers because it slowed things down.
No.
Well, that was a virus that came in. It was about a month after 9/11, and it hit our network. And I mean, it destroyed about 5 servers. And before we were able to yank, everything off the net. And God, what was that? What was that virus? I'll think of it in a minute. Those 2 neurons are floating around. They'll fire eventually. But yeah, it's I mean, we were working. We worked all night working with the antivirus people to get everything back up and running, and we did. But it was a long, long day.
And Charlie, think about this. You mentioned, because it was right after 9/11. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, 9/11 doesn't seem like it was 20 plus years ago. It just seemed like it was,
yesterday,
recently.
Yeah.
But yet think about the computer technology you were working with at that time versus what we have now.
Yeah.
Again, there were no smartphones in our lives. I mean, I don't remember what Mac computer I had in 2001, but God, I'm trying to think.
IMAX or maybe G4 Towers.
Or it might have been
I had a
my
PC at that
iBook.
time. I didn't switch over to a Mac until about 2002.
okay.
I might have had my clamshell iBook around that time. I don't know, or maybe
Yeah.
that was a little earlier, but
Do you still have that one, Glenn?
I don't. I've got a bag that I have 3 or 4 old laptops, but that's not one of them. I
Yeah.
also have a box with all kinds of odds and ends. I actually found in there a first generation iPhone that I have. So I'm protecting that thing nicely so that maybe someday it'll be worth some money.
Well, I mean, but wasn't it kind of cool when, Apple really, really cared more about the Macs than about anything else? I mean, it was kind of fun, when, we all were waiting with bated breath on the next Mac, and you didn't have these stupid iPhones. And then now, of course, that's what they make all their money from, is the iPhones. I mean, we're a tiny part of their business, tiny part.
Actually, they make all their money off their services these days.
Yeah. Remember the time when Jobs wanted to have his brand new computer, the black QB thing? What was it called?
Next.
Next.
Yeah.
I looked at one of those, I remember, in the bookstore at WashU. So that must have been in the 60s.
Yeah. Oh,
Early.
yeah. Well, yeah. The next, I saw one down at Ralston when I was there. But, I mean, after he got kicked out of Apple, and then he decided God, what was the guy that designed, the modern Mac OS system, in Unix? God, it was a Russian name or something. That guy that he brought on board
Avi
to Apple.
Tuvanian, or Avi Tuvanian, I think.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, the fact that, he brought that guy in and modernized, the operating system, because, trying to port OS 9 into anything, and it was just had so many, it was easier to start over than it was to try and make that old thing work. So, yeah, that's, I mean, I'm just amazed at how far they went. But the next one, though, it was expensive. It was sealed up. You couldn't change anything on the inside. And of course, the IBM world, you could go out and go down to the Egghead Software Company and buy yourself some, maybe an expansion card or something, and plug it into your, that could work. I mean, Compact 386, I remember those. Gosh, all these old ones. I mean, we had fun with them at Ralston. It was good. I mean, we didn't have any PCs down at the city, and they didn't have at Barnes when I worked there, because I only worked at Barnes for a couple of years, and it was like 1981, I think, is when I left there. And that was all mainframes, and they were trying to get as many, every doctor's office wanted to have their monitor that they could connect to the mainframes and look at patient records. And we had the issue with they kept adding to the patient records and they never purged them. They never, just archived some stuff off, and it just kept bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally got to the point where they said, we gotta start dumping some of this stuff off because it takes too long to rebuild the databases and anything happens. So they finally started, dumping stuff, maybe the 20-year-old stuff but I mean, they just kept building up and building up. Patient records was great. They had to handle when you went in for a sex change operation at Barnes, you go in as a male or go in as a female and you come out the opposite. And of course, the patient accounting was like, gender never changes. Well, now it will. So they had to figure out a way to account for that.
That must have been a really hairy operation, just simply devising software for that.
Well, we were doing the same thing with Washu. I worked at Olin Library while he was getting there. And we were archiving books at Tyson Valley. Had some kind of things up there. Maybe they were I don't know what they were, but we were storing all the oldest Dewey Decimal stuff out there and very slowly converting to Library of Congress cataloging. And actually going from a card catalog that filled a room, because we had 1 million books about at that time, we switched everything eventually over to LC and finally got the last of the old books out of the storage out in Tyson. And we went from, no computers to heavy duty computing by the time I left.
Did you know Harold Mack or Bill Smith when you worked at WashU?
Sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not sure. I worked there until early 70s, from mid 60s to early 70s.
Okay, all right. Or Scott Robinson?
No.
No,
The one
no.
one person I found that was working at WashU at the time, it was interesting because I had no idea that there's a modern musician very active in St. Louis, and his mother was a cataloger in the WashU library, and I worked with her, but I had no idea that he was related to her.
Oh.
Guys, it's 9 o'clock, so I need to go eat dinner. So thanks everybody for coming tonight. I hope you learned something, and Glenn, your goodies were good as usual, and Steve, your presentation. Steve, you'll send me that, and Glenn, you'll send me information from your thing, and we'll see you
Just
all
send it to
next
you.
month.
And Glenn, by the way, they have kind of said you might be a help to me down the line
Okay.
with working with accessibility.
I don't know.
We can go together to settings and we go to accessibility, and I use a lot of those, but some of them I have no clue what they mean. And
Well, I'm more than happy to investigate.
that's what I thought you would be. I thought it'd be a nice challenge for you. So sometimes send me an email and we'll set up something.
Okay, everybody.
Well, maybe we can do that after school gets out.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I'm in no hurry.
All
Good
right.
night.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night.